What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Drive for Show, DFS for Dough here on Rotogrinders, here to talk some golf on a Tuesday night, or for any of you who might be watching or listening on our podcast feed after the fact, anytime before the golf rosters lock on Thursday morning. Fairly important golf tournament this week. I can't remember the exact name of it off the top of my head, but we'll try to get there as we go throughout the show. Maybe I'll remember what we've got going on this week. But of course, I am Justin Van Zuiden. I will be hosting the show. STL Cardinals 84 is my daily fantasy handle. We are super excited, of course, to be doing the show for the Masters, first major of the year, and it's only been 5 months since the last Masters, but nobody is complaining. So bring in my two co-hosts, lots to get to here as we go through the program, so we won't waste any time. Bring in Mr. Tambo on one side. How you doing today, Tambo?
I'm doing good, man. Don't leave the elephant in the room, though. You're coming off a pretty good week. So I want to talk about you because you're Mr. Humble Guy. You'll never bring it up. I was joking with you before the show that you had a nice little win at the Valero Texas Open. We had a pretty good week there. We were sweating it out in the old RG Slack together, and the three of us there just, rooting you on, and you just didn't waste it all. I teased you before the show, but you skipped the podium. You took a fourth. You're saving it all for Masters week. But yeah, it was a fun week. Jordan Spieth is back. You called that one. First time you played him in forever, for ages, and now you go and take down some good coin with that. So how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. Always nice to get a little bankroll boost the week before a major. You can donate a little bit more of it back. Noto says, he said before he likes donating to charity. Sometimes you do that. So after a big win, you give a little more back. But the funny story is usually I sweat my lineups pretty good on Sunday. Frankly, I thought I was pretty dead. That lineup was in like 215th going into Sunday. My first couple guys shot like even or one under or something, but then all of a sudden I like refreshed it and I saw I was in like 15th place. And I think Lucas Glover went like birdie eagle on the back, and then Chris Kirk had made some birdies, so he was up into the top 10, and those two guys were both really low owned. I mean, of course I had Spieth and Hoffman along with a lot of people, but it was really Glover and Kirk making runs there on Sunday that made the difference. And yeah, super happy with fourth place. And it was a fun sweat there in the $15 on DraftKings. And I didn't spend my whole Sunday fretting over it. It was only like the last hour and a half or 2 hours. So yeah, it was pretty good, and happy to hit one, first one in a while.
Yeah, it's nice.
We'll bring in Noto as well. Noto had a little bit of a bad beat in the qualifier for the 44-44 last week, which we were rooting him on in. Way too many missed putts on Sunday from his golfers and a brutal miscut from Harold Varner. So, Noto, sorry about the bad beat there. How was your week otherwise?
Yeah, pretty terrible week. We can't all be winners, but congrats to you, Justin. That was awesome seeing you, get that high of a finish. Yeah, a little frustrating for me. Missed out on the queue. Just needed, I had two golfers. He had one. I needed all pars or one of my guys to birdie, and his guy birdied and mine did not. So that's all right. We're, buying into Justin's queue a little bit this week in the 444. So I'm excited for that to sweat with you. And I'm looking forward to Masters week. I mean, there's nothing like it. We get it once a year. It comes and goes so fast. And the buildup, it's always better than any other tournament of the year. So I can't wait. Been watching the live from the Masters as much as I can throughout the week. So I'm pumped.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun. Obviously, we can spend plenty of time previewing the tournament. Would be remiss if we didn't at least take a quick look back at last week. Obviously, the big story, Jordan Spieth's first win in multiple years, and obviously the media kind of ate that up on Sunday. And we've talked about it the last few weeks. He just has looked like a different player, and in Texas at home, got a crowd back and playing with confidence, and you can tell. And it was just a fantastic performance from him. And Hoffman played great. I mean, Hoffman shot 75, I think, in the first round, and then was fantastic after that. And Spieth was able to hold him off and finally kind of get over that hurdle that had been, plaguing him when he was taking those Sunday leads here so far this year. So kudos to him on the W, and Hoffman on a really good week, and a few other players played really well too. It was a fun tournament despite the relatively weak field there. So Tambo, any other takeaways from last week's event for you?
No, it's good to see, like we talked about in the past enough probably, but Jordan Spieth back is always a good thing. I love it, especially for the hype. You know, Noto just talked about being pumped for the Masters. I think we all are. That's the thing. And now you've got that storyline, which we'll run into here when we get into the preview. But Doug Gim losing 6 strokes or whatever it was on Sunday, that one pretty much sucked for any of my lineups. So I know as far as DFS goes, that was a tough week in that aspect. And then, Hoffman just doing his thing to try and get in. He needed to win to get in. And then all the first round leader jokes would have been relevant, but he didn't get in. So unfortunate for him, but I saw a number. I believe he's made over $4 million now at the Valero Texas Open, and he's a champion one time, but that's how well he does there. And like you said, to bounce back from that Thursday and put together that Friday, Saturday, Sunday is something special. Shout out to Ricky Fowler. Tried to do his thing. Got to get his name in on the show because, he was a good play last week, I thought, and it just didn't quite pan out in the end, but looked like he gained a little bit of confidence back. So it'll be interesting to watch him going forward after that event.
Yeah, I was joking with you that when he made the cut, he was on his way to his usual T59 or whatever. And I think he bogeyed his first 2 holes or 2 of his first 3 holes on Saturday. And I thought, oh, there he goes. But played really well after that and ended up getting his best finish in a while. So was a fun event, and normally maybe spend a little bit more time looking back at it. But it's Masters week and there's tons of stuff for us to get to. So we'll go ahead and forge ahead to this tournament. But Noto, anything else you want to add before we do that?
Shout out to Brant Snedeker and Gary Woodland. Haven't seen them in the top 10 for a while. That was nice to see. And I was going to ask you, Justin, did you have Matt Wallace in your lineup?
I did not have Matt Wallace.
So I was listening to Tambo's show with Kenny, and he was saying if Wallace would have birdied that last hole, he would have got the birdie streak. He would have got the all 4 under 70 streak, and then obviously got the birdie points too. So that would have been
I think I would have had 3 guys pass me if Wallace would have birdied the last hole. So it was ironic that like I had Spieth and Hoffman, and their finishing out was irrelevant. It was just what Wallace was going to do. So, I was not disappointed that he parred that last hole.
And you hated on a par 5 to end out too, because you're just like, how does he not at least make birdie here with the week he's had? But sure enough, not to be seen. And you got the 4th place, I believe, because of it, 20,000. And I saw you a couple other places. We did the Monday review show. You were kicking around with a few dollars left and right. So that's a good week, like you said, heading into the Masters here.
Yeah, I think I finished 5th in the $5 too, which was all right. I mean, same lineup. So, and somebody actually tweeted me and said they had the same lineup as me in the $5, which matched because I saw that we had tied. But then in the $15, they entered it, but they used Gim instead of Glover in the $15. So that person, had fallen down the leaderboard a little bit in the 15. So that's always a problem, or always when you look back and my lineup would have done this in this tournament. It's easy to kick yourself when you look back and think of things like that. But still a pretty solid week all around, and saw a lot of tweets and things flying around there on Sunday night that seems like a lot of Team RG had a really good week last week at the Valero. So hopefully we can keep that going and maybe get somebody to ship a Millie this week, which I believe there are 3 Millie makers on DraftKings, which you never see ever in any sport. So yeah, DFS golf continues to grow. And if you want a shot at $1 million, you can do it at any price point. There's $10, $100, and the old 44 if you're going to be high rolling it this week, and plenty of GPPs in between if you don't want to chase the top heavy Millie makers. So obviously everybody knows kind of about Augusta, but tradition, we always have Noto do a little brief look at the course. So Noto, why don't you tell the people about Augusta?
Yeah, at this point, we all pretty much know Augusta, par 72, 4 par 5s, all reachable with a pretty good drive. Number 3 is a par 4, short one that some of the golfers can drive. We saw Bryson last year drive it over the green. Typically, guys are like 30 yards short with a nice little pitch. And you're going to have a lot of drivers this week. The rough here is like the fairway at a local municipal course, really short, really easy to hit out of. The fairways are easy to hit. They're wide. So you're going to see a lot of golfers hit a lot of drivers, which to me means you're going to have to, give a big weight to strokes gained off the tee. If you're looking at distance or accuracy, you definitely want distance over accuracy this week. And then you're going to have to be good with your irons. It sounds like the course is going to be a lot firmer and faster than we saw in November. So It sounds like you're just going to not be able to attack the pins as much. You're going to want to hit in the right spots in the green rather than, being aggressive and taking some of the lines. So it'll be interesting to me to see if the golfers that played well in November, the ones that played it for the first time, if they're going to be able to adapt to the different conditions. We can talk about that when we get there. And then course history, obviously, course experience is going to play a big role here. You got to know the slopes and the undulations and where to miss. A lot of golfers talk about, having to know where to miss in order to get up and down if you do miss. So I'm going to be looking at around the green, and you're going to have to putt well, but these greens are so different than what we see, at an average PGA Tour event, that I don't think looking at just raw stroke game putting makes all that much sense, because again, course history matters more than most. There's no green books this week, so the golfers are going to have to read the greens by themselves rather than having all of the lines given to them on the green book. And obviously going to have to avoid bogeys, make birdies, take advantage of the par fives.
That's pretty much the formula for success here. I agree. Should play firmer and faster, and probably not quite as easy on the hole as what we saw back in November, when it was pretty easy to hold the greens, and they weren't quite as firm and fast as what we generally see in April. Though there is a potential forecast for rain, so if they get a lot of rain, maybe that softens it up a little bit, but otherwise should play more difficult this time around, I would think. So, Tambo, your thoughts to add in there?
Main thing for me in majors, especially, and in this one, which I'm sure we'll go through, obviously, lesser field, all that, we'll talk about it. And, I'm happy I got Noto on this with me this week for tomorrow night's show. We'll go through some of the roster construction stuff then. That's a premium feature, premium show. But as far as just, the Masters goes, with less people involved and that can really actually do anything, I actually do focus more on long-term result, like stats, results, things like that, because I think it just matters so much more. Everyone wants to play in the now. We're going to talk about some of the ownerships that we're seeing on Lineup HQ right now and who people are playing. And not only does the long-term stats matter more to me, but typically that means they have more experience here, which this is an experience type course. Not too many people show up first time or first couple times and do much. So I'm big on that when it comes to the Masters over any other major.
Yeah, that feels like a pretty universal opinion. You don't, a lot of things you see quite a bit of dissent on, but there's really no data to back up, saying that first timers can do just as well here. I mean, I think it's been, 42 years since the first timers won the Masters, and it's difficult in basically the way the course plays, and like Noto mentioned, needing to know where to miss. It's just tough without a lot of that experience. So, Noto, how do you handle kind of the first time players in terms of your GPP builds? If you're multi-entering, are you just going to X them all out? Are you going to be more selective about who you might take as a first timer? I mean, there's some first timers that are pretty good golfers. Somebody like Zalatoris, and who's maybe played here in when he was in college or something like that. Like, how do you handle the first timers in multi-entry builds?
And when it comes to betting, I'm not going to be betting any of them. Obviously, I don't think the winner is going to come from a first timer, like you mentioned, 42 years since Fuzzy Zeller won it as a first timer. But I mean, there's a lot of guys that show up that are good golfers that play it for the first time and post top 20 finishes, top 10 finishes. So if the price is right, I certainly don't mind playing a guy like Will Zalatoris. But for me, you definitely do want experience. But at the same time, you're getting a price discount, you're getting an ownership discount. So there may be one or two that I end up keeping in the player pool.
All right, so let's go ahead and start digging in, and we normally just start at the top and go from there. And I'm just gonna deviate from that just slightly, because I think it makes sense to start by talking about Spieth, because the pricing came out for this event, prior to last week. DFS pricing generally kind of goes off of Vegas odds, and Spieth was more into that 20, 22 to 1, 18 to 1 range to win the Masters. Then obviously last week happens, that Spieth is a very public bet golfer. And so now, he's setting up to where he could go off as maybe the second favorite by the time the Masters tees off on Thursday. And game theory or not, there's no doubt that in some of these GPPs, Spieth is still going to be really chalky. I mean, he is the 9th most expensive golfer on the board. If you're playing on Yahoo, there are 25 golfers priced ahead of Jordan Spieth this week. It's just anybody who is just a casual golf fan, throwing some entries in for the Masters. I mean, people are going to play Spieth. we've got him right there as the highest owned guy on the board, somewhere between 25 and 30%. You're going to see a lot of Spieth ownership here. Yes, some people will get off due to game theory, but you're going to see Spieth ownership. So Noto, I know you have him tagged up. How do you handle Spieth if you're just looking at, single entry or cash games versus GPP multi-entry?
Yeah, for me, if you're going to play him in MME, you're definitely going to have to get a high exposure to him if you want to be overweight on the field. But I was thinking about it, and at the Players Championship, I mean, I made so many decisions just based on ownership. And then Thursday came around, and so many of the ownership projections weren't what I thought they would be anyway. And then I was just like, why didn't I just play the guys I liked? So that's what I'm going to do this week. And I really like Spieth. I think he's an obvious cash game option because, like you mentioned, his outright odds are like the second or third best in the field. And, he's the 10th, 11th most expensive golfer on FanDuel and DraftKings. But for me, look, you got the course history. I was planning on playing him before his win last week, so I wasn't really cheering for him to win because I didn't have a lot of exposure to him. But second in the field in approach over the last 24 rounds. We know he knows these greens better than anyone. And after he won, it wasn't like an emotional letdown or emotional ease. He was already talking about Masters, already talking about keeping it going. They said today on the par 5, he hit it to like 20 feet. And then Greller put down a little putter cover from 89 yards and said, practice your wedge shot from here. And he hit the wedge, he hit the little putter cover. So, I mean, he is locked in right now. Short game magic, everything's just lining up for it. I know he's got some demons at this course after what happened at the 12th hole a few years back, but for me, I'm going to be overweight. I certainly understand wanting to be underweight. It's probably the smart move, but personally, I'm going overweight.
My concern is that at some point there's going to be a level of burnout. I know it's the Masters and you're going to be going off adrenaline, but Spieth has played 8 of the last 10 weeks, and he made it 4 matches at the match play, which was 4 matches in 4 days. So, that's another week. And then, a win, his first win in so long, all the interviews are going to be asking about it. And then there's the Masters narratives. And I don't know. I just worry a little bit about fatigue, and he's going to be so popular because he feels so underpriced that I get it. The ownership projections can be wrong from time to time, but I really don't think it's going to be here.
He'll be popular. I'm not saying that.
Yeah. And when I tweeted on Sunday, I said that my guess for the $10 Millie Maker was 33.4. We've got him at 28.6. I think he's probably going to end up in that 30 range. And I got back on him last week, and just from a game theory perspective this week, I'm not trying to tell you he's not going to play well. Certainly has a chance to win. This is more of just a hedge on ownership, and I'll play the other guys around him instead. But I'm not going to fight anybody, obviously, the way he's playing right now that wants to play him. But I am not playing him this week in GPPs. Wouldn't argue against playing him in any format, though, if you're inclined to do that. So, Tambo, you're the tiebreaker on Spieth here.
Yeah, I'm under. Like, the bigger thing for me is just I'm with you. So I'm with Noto in the sense of the ownerships are oftentimes off, and we'll talk about it when we do get back to the top of the guys in the 5-figure range, where then it's kind of just play who you like, because what are you doing over 2% here? That's just pointless to go back and forth on. I do think Spieth will be at 30. It's just really hard for me to get to that number. I'm not in love with him this week. I like Cantlay, I like Reed, I like Finau, I like other guys around him that I will play here still. So I just can't do it. And I'm playing 150 lineups in something like the $10. So if I've got 20% Spieth, I'm unfortunately, I'm still 10% under the field, but I've got 30 Spieth lineups. And I do the Monday review show every week here on Rotogrinders and look at what people are putting in. And a lot of people are just chucking 20 lineups in. And so even if they're all in on Spieth, I've got 30 combinations at 20% Spieth that I'm putting together. I don't have a feeling that it's just a runaway for Spieth. It's still the Masters, all those, fatigue factors and things that you brought up, cards, to me are standout enough that I don't feel like I need to be all in on this guy. I think it's fine, but I'll just have probably 30 lineups out of the 150 with him.
Yeah, part of that is me praying that that's what happens, but that's okay. We'll see how it unfolds. And part of the beauty of DFS is that I can sweat a guy that I faded just as much as the guys that I played. So we'll see how that goes. Will be really interesting, but obviously at that salary and the way he's playing right now, Spieth is definitely worth the conversation. So let's work our way back up to these other names at the top. Obviously, with the way the pricing works for the Masters, it's a little bit loose. You'll like the way your lineups look, relatively speaking, compared to some of these other events, and you can fit in some names at the top. So, Tambo, I'll stick with you. I'll give you first crack at this, and we can really just go anywhere above Spieth. So, for the top 8 or so guys in the field, is there somebody that you feel you're really looking to try to get overweight on, and or maybe a couple names that you're a little more nervous about?
Yeah, it looks like I'll just naturally be overweight. I'll start with Rory because he's only showing up at 10%. I just like him. I don't, he hasn't done much lately, but this is a course that he's definitely done some things at, even discounting the November one and throwing it out. I mean, he was still doing stuff at that event. He just didn't have the best start. So I think Rory's a fine play at 10.2. Normally don't see him that cheap. Rahm, obviously a standout play. The worry for some, maybe his ownership even comes down a little when people hear that he's not showing up today until the course until tomorrow, or he might have shown up today, I guess it was, and then we'll see what he does from there. But I don't know. These guys are all just around the same. DJ, definitely going to play some of him. The fact he's showing up at 11% is just throwing me off. So DJ, Rahm, Rory, JT and Bryson are right there. And I talked about them on the Monday show with Kenny that I did, from a first look perspective. But it's hard not to like all of these guys. So you eventually just got to sort of pick your spots. It's the Masters. You're going to look for guys that you want to go all the way with. And, for these guys, it has nothing really to do with the fact that their ownership is low. It's or high in that perspective of a guy like JT. It's just who do you like more? And I really like DJ, Rahm, and Rory. I'm not going to, say no to Bryson completely because I'm kind of giving up on this thing at any course with 4 par 5s. And the way Bryson's got the all-around game, I had it pegged at API. I don't feel that same way here or like I did at the US Open with U-Cards, but you just got to think it wasn't just the driver at API. It was the entire game. And, some people talked about the green reading books and all these different factors of why he may or may not do well here. But at 10.8K, it's hard to discount him out as well. So just not my favorite. The other 3 would be, but those other 2 guys, Bryson, JT, and Xander even down there, it's hard not to think about them, but I'm in on the other 3 guys heavy.
Yeah, had the same thoughts on Bryson, and he said it last year. Well, it was a par 67 for me, and then he was terrible the first day, and everybody was roasting him on social media. But and he didn't have a great finish, but overall, but he played decent after that. I mean, you put a decent first round in there, and he would have been maybe not right there, but would have been in the mix for a top 10. So. Certainly the way he can smash the ball out there and give himself some eagle looks, or maybe, get close to driving the short par 4 there. You just never know. So do I think Bryson's the safest pick at the top? No. Do I think he's got as much upside as anybody else? Sure. I think he's a really fine tournament option. But again, it's hard to dislike any of these guys. I mean, as usual, it's splitting hairs at the top, and there's going to be guys that, surprise and struggle. But the other factor is we've only got 87 golfers here, and 50 in ties make the cut. And a lot of those 87 golfers are former champions or has-beens, or, it's just, you got maybe 10 guys that have no chance. So then you're down to about 77 golfers with maybe 52 or 54 or 55 of them making the cut. You're going to see, in theory, a higher percentage of 6-6 lineups than usual, compared to usual, unless a lot of the chalk really flames out. So that's another factor, when you're kind of deciding how to build your lineups. Noto, your thoughts on the top range?
Yeah, I think at least one of us is going to have a good week because JT and Bryson are my 2 favorites up here. For me, I mean, they're just small things. DJ, it's really tough to defend at Augusta National. He's obviously got the great course history, but his form isn't that great. John Rahm just had his new baby, so either nappy factor or, maybe he's getting some sleepless nights. He went on the podcast with Colton Knowles saying, "Don't pick me this week. I don't think I'm going to win, and I'll probably leave if, my wife goes into labor." Obviously, that was before the baby came, but he had his expectations low even before heading into the week, so that worries me a little bit. And then, Rory, obviously the new swing coach, hasn't been hitting his wedges very well over the last few months. Xander coming in poor form. So for me, give me Bryson. I mean, he's competed at 2 courses that aren't really his strong suit. I mean, he won the API. Obviously, that's a little bit more of a bomber's track, but then nearly won the Players, which he didn't even hit a lot of drivers that week. He's gained 9.3 strokes on approach in his last 2 events. And, we've been talking about him as like a bomber putter type, but now the irons are turning around. So I do like Bryson. Then you have JT, progressively better finishes here each of the last 5 years, T4 here in 2020. So if that trend continues, there's only, so many places up he can go. And without Tiger, he says he's been talking to him. So maybe Tiger's in his ear, telling him a few secrets. JT's talked about in the past when they played their practice rounds. Tiger's not telling him anything, but maybe with Tiger, not in the field this week, he's telling him a little something extra. And I do like the fact that he worked on that right to left ball flight at the Players. I mean, he hit that drive at the par 5 and then again on the 18th. And you're going to need that left or right to left ball flight on a couple of these holes. So Bryce and JT are my favorites, but like you guys mentioned, it's hard to find anything wrong with any of them. I'll try to get sprinkles if I can, but there's a couple up here that I don't know if are going to make my player pool or not.
All right, Tambo, any follow-ups to that?
Yeah, just a quick note. I mean, I think it's a little, for MME especially, it's kind of a tired narrative that we can't play them all. We talk about it all the time, but like just an example, DJ Spieth versus Rom X versus Bryson Rory. Those are 2v2s. So if you pick your 4 value plays and it lands on that money and you can go there, like I literally might just run those 2v2s back to back to back, because how are you telling me the difference between DJ Spieth, Bryson Rory, and Xander Rahm? Like it's any of those combinations could come together and be the difference maker. You just talked a second ago, cards of one guy going Glover versus Gim, where he made that error in the $15. It's one click. I'm trying to substitute up here more than I am down low. So we'll get a little bit more certain as we go through these ranges, at least for me, but it's really hard. Love what Noto said. And I actually did love that about JT coming into the week, was that the commentators brought up that he was working on that ball flight, and that's that swing type at the Players, which he went on to win, monkey off his back, sort of a lot of stuff going on in his life personally. So don't hate that either. It's just, it's more of, it's hard to play a lot of all, and you sort of have to make your choices on who you're going to be overweight on and go to bat with in sort of those other one-off lineups, more than when you're just mixing and matching some of these guys at the top.
Yeah, great point. And it's, there's the fear of missing out on a loaded field like this, no matter what you decide, because you can't be overweight on everybody at the top, or else you have a cheat code of salary cap. But it's part of what makes it fun as well. All right, let's talk about kind of that next range of, say, Morikawa, Reed, Koepka coming off an injury, and only going to be about 4 or 5% owned. You got Finau and Simpson there above 9K as well. Finau coming off a missed cut last week. His ownership may be a little bit lower than it otherwise would have been. I think that has me on Team Finau this week. I think Tambo mentioned it earlier, just kind of in passing, but I like Cantlay as well. Same same rationale. Guys that are coming off of missed cuts, that, these guys are really good golfers. If people are going to be off Cantlay and they're going to be off Finau, and I'm looking to get leverage away from Spieth, well, then play his neighbors, play Cantlay, play Finau, play Reed, or whoever is your favorite. I like Cantlay. I like Finau. My lineups will show that this week, but that's kind of my thoughts on that range, kind of around Spieth. If you're looking to get different, then play the other guys around him that aren't going to be quite so popular. So, Noto, back to you.
Yeah, absolute perfect scenario for Finau this week. Coming in bad form. He's always struggled on Bermuda, always struggled in Florida. So I'll throw the miscut of the Players out. And then obviously missed the cut last week in Texas. I'm not too worried about it. I've been talking about, Finau potentially winning the Masters for a couple months now. So I love the fact that he's coming in poor form, just because he's going to be low owned. If he would have came in like T20 last week, he'd be 20% plus maybe. We've seen him contend here, even with a dislocated ankle. He's also got another top 10 the year before that. So I agree with you there. I also agree on Cantlay. His match play result should have been a lot better. He actually led the field tee to green, I believe, in the group stage, and didn't make it out because he ended up losing to Hideki. He ran into everybody that was just red hot in the group stage. So I like Cantlay quite a bit. He doesn't have a weakness in his game. I talked about Spieth. I'll be on him. I'm going to be fading Reed because I always do. I'm sure that'll burn me. Brooks Koepka, he's out there looking like a Power Ranger. I don't know if you guys saw his tweet. He's reading the greens with his leg sticking straight out because he can't bend it. So that looks kind of funny. That just worries me a little bit. If he can't even bend the knee, it's got to be having a little bit of an effect on his swing. But I don't know if he just plays these things up. It seems like he always wants to be the underdog. Maybe I'm wrong there, but it just seems like he plays it up to be the underdog. I never want to count him out, but I don't think I'll play a ton of him. And then Morikawa, I think I'll be underweight on. It scares me, but I'm typically underweight on him, so might as well continue it.
Yeah, if the greens are playing a little firmer and faster too, it'll be a little bit more of a challenge for him with the putter. But I think I'm in lockstep with your thoughts on that. Tambo, anything else with those golfers kind of around 9K that you want to bring up?
A couple things. One, just the four guys that I like are Cantlay, Morikawa, Reed, and Finau. And the reason is just to getting more clarity as the week goes on. One of the things I want to note, though, and again, Noto and I will go through this tomorrow night on the Premium Lineup HQ show, but at the Players, if you recall, everybody wanted to just pepper this 9K range, myself included. It doesn't look like we'll have that scenario here at all. We just went through and couldn't even pick a guy necessarily completely up top, or at least for myself, where you want to play them all. So this range is pretty interesting. If you had like a Cantlay, Reed, Finau lineup or something like that, that's all guys that I think could win the tournament and would just get away from some of those storylines at the top. And one we forgot, Rory and Rahm, just a couple of new dads going out together. They're in the same group with Mr. Xander Schauffele. So that'll be, interesting to see how that plays out. The one thing I'll say on Morikawa here is just, he's everything we've thought. He's shown us something different. So even if, we all knew his talent was there, but if you didn't think he could do this, he went out and did it. He won the major first amongst them. He got his win early on. He just won a WGC. And we already know the issue with him is either the putter shows up or it doesn't. So in tournaments, I've got to play that. And I kind of like that he's just coming in at 9% because of that. So I'll definitely be overweight on him. And Finau, sort of the same reason Noto said, just we'll play him when he's 25 and 9% owned. How am I not going to play him in a tournament where he's actually done well in the past on half an ankle at 11%? So just a play I already liked, and now you get him at even lower ownership. So I'm happy to round out the range with that.
Sounds good. We do have a question in the chat, kind of a theory question we can touch on here quick, from DJ Dog 3K asking, how much do you guys weigh projections in golf? I know in baseball the volatility is high. So is golf like baseball in the sense where ownership means more than the projection? And Noto, I know you have your kind of model that you've built. So just I guess to boil down the question, how much do you in GPPs, how much do you trust your model versus questioning, ownership on a player?
I think it's a blended approach for me. I definitely trust the model in the long run, but at the same time, I like to trust my gut on a lot of plays too. And there's a lot of guys that just don't rate out well for me in the model. But yeah, so it's interesting. You got to definitely weigh all the factors. And it is a very, very volatile sport. I don't know if it's as volatile as baseball, but certainly up there.
Tambo, anything to add on that?
I just use Noto rating. I just, the projections for me, like I'll just move it around, and I use the projections more to, if they're going to affect what I'm trying to do in Lineup HQ. Again, why I love that show and why I love playing around with Lineup HQ, because it gives us all the opportunity to do exactly what we want with our lineups, whether it's via groups or min-max. Like, it's just the best tool, in my opinion, for PGA DFS. Have had a lot of success with it. I know, Cards, you're heavy into it as well, doing shows even before I joined the Rotogrinders team. So I think it's just the excellent tool for that. And I sometimes, like I said, Noto rating, it goes in with that. These are normally some mix or blend of his projections and stuff in there. So I mess around with them, but I'm focused on trying to get these golfers I'm talking about. And that comes from my own stuff and my own side of things that I'm going through here with you today.
All right, let's move on into the 8K range. Now it's obviously deeper than what you would usually expect, particularly after the last couple of weeks of weaker fields. And we've got guys that have had recent success like Westwood here. We've got the young up-and-coming guys like Hovland and Im and Scheffler, the wild card, Matsuyama. You got Berger in here. So plenty of good plays in the 8K range. Noto, I'll throw this one back to you first. Who you looking at in here?
So my favorite plays at the very bottom. I like Matthew Fitzpatrick quite a bit. He has added quite a bit of distance off the tee, and he's actually gaining quite a few strokes with his driver, which typically hasn't been the case. He's historically been his best on longer tracks, on difficult tracks. He's talked about, liking fast and firm courses. So I'll definitely have a lot of him. Doesn't look like he's going to be too popular. I think Daniel Berger's popular, but for good reason. He's one of those golfers that just gains strokes in all facets. The rib injury doesn't seem like it's bothering him that much. I mean, played well at the Players, played pretty well at the match play as well. I ended up losing in a playoff in the group stage. And then going over the top, I will have some Lee Westwood. I like a lot of chalk this week. And one way for me to differentiate a little bit is to play some Westwood. I'm guessing, he's going to be less than 5% owned, but he's made 12 straight cuts here, 7 top 11s during that stretch. We've seen the upside recently, and this might be like his last real chance to get a major. So I know he's definitely overpriced, no doubt about it. But with a lot of the other chalk that I do like, I think I'm going to have some Westwood. Hovland's a guy I'll be overweight on. Hasn't played here since he was an amateur, but he did make the cut. And he's a guy that, he's a ball striker. So he's going to either give himself a lot of birdie looks or he's going to struggle around the greens, similar to Morikawa. So I guess you could play those two together. And that's pretty much it for me. I'll have a little bit of Cam Smith. I'll be off of Scheffler, a little bit of Hideki. I'm going to be off of Sungjae and off of Hatton as well.
Yeah, for reference to Noto's point, if you look on DraftKings right now, Westwood has the same odds to win as Joaquin Niemann, who's $1,400 cheaper on DK there. So now you can argue that means Niemann's underpriced more than it does Westwood being overpriced, or some combination of both. But again, that's one way to get different, to play a guy if you like him, even if he does feel overpriced. It's if Westwood wins or even top fives, it's irrelevant. So you just got to have that guy in your lineup. So Tambo, your thoughts on the 8K range?
Yeah, I'm going to take a different Englishman at the top there at similar ownership. 4% is Tyrrell Hatton. And I just think, it's going to be him and another guy at 7.9K when we get down there, that they haven't had the best majors record. They've done well in other places recently or in the last year, but the talent is just too good for me to not try him again here. Like it's been a tough road or a tough path from here, but he's definitely seen the course. Some guys it just takes a little while longer to get back around, but he's won on tour in big fields, in strong fields at tough courses. So I'm going to play him. I love the Hovland call Noto just brought up. I think he's someone I'll definitely go back to. Berger, probably the good chalk, if you will. I like Scheffler. Been playing some good golf, coming in hot. I don't know if he's been playing too much golf, but still feels okay to me at this price. But the guys I like more are actually in between. So Noto and I are off the same page there. Again, he's on Fitzpatrick. I like Cam Smith. Cam Smith is a couple percent higher owned. Don't really care too much about that. I'm just going to play the guy I like, but Cam Smith and then Hideki at 8.3K. This is, last week didn't do anything special, but he's been playing okay and coming back again, talking about that long-term form, the course history, knowing the course, all of those things, finally getting him at like 9% when he's 8.3K. That just feels like an added bonus, almost like the Finau call up above. So that's sort of my guys in the 8K range there, Cards.
All right, like it. And he played pretty well last week for a few rounds, a little uneven on the weekend, but at least starting to show some signs of life there for Hideki. So, but again, more than what we usually see kind of in the 8K range for potential upside. A lot of these guys, wouldn't be surprised if you got a top 5 or top 10. So I'm with Tambo on Matsuyama. I'm with Noto on Fitzpatrick. Like those guys. Those would be two of my favorites in that range. All right, let's go ahead then and move down to the 7K range. Certainly, we talk about Bubba Watson doing well on Bubba tracks. This is a Bubba track. His odds have kind of cratered throughout the week. I was really surprised when we saw him originally at, maybe 50 or so to 1. Now he's down in that 80, 85 to 1 range. And I know that, he's a little bit more inconsistent now, but Bubba plays well here, and we've got him at about 4 or 5% owned in DFS. So Bubba's a guy I like this week as well. Don't know if I'd have the guts to roll him in a single entry or super high dollar, format. But I think if lower dollar milli maker, something like that, Bubba is certainly a guy that I wouldn't mind playing some of this week. Who are some of your guys' favorites in the kind of upper part of that 7K range? Looks like Paul Casey's going to be the chalk there. Tambo, I will let you have this first.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear. I didn't look at Noto's blurb yet, and I know Casey's probably another, Berger type player where he's just great. He's too cheap for what he is, but it reminds me a little bit of the Spieth play up above. Like, just really hard for me. He's not someone I'm gung ho on, and I actually love a lot of the guys around him. I'm not as high on the low 7K range, so I'll use my time up here now. Sergio was the guy I brought up earlier. Again, his run of majors since winning the Masters has been pretty atrocious, to be honest, but his play lately has been solid, and at 12%. Just an added bonus. Again, obviously knows the course very well, has done enough to win here in the past. At least we've also seen him put up, what was it, a 12 or something on that one hole that year and just ended early for us. So at least he makes it entertaining. You're either in or you're out, but I'm in. You brought up Bubba. I'm surprised by the ownership there. Nobody wants to play him. Again, it's a Bubba course. We always talk about that saying. And then you know me with Louis O at majors, never going away from that at 7.5K. And I'm glad Noto got him tagged up because we've been in on that before and it's worked out quite well for us. We didn't talk about this a lot at the top, but I guess the bigger thing of the scoring this week, we mentioned it, but it's not going to likely to be a DJ minus 20 type week that we're about to see here. There's already been talks of crispy and firm and fast, as we mentioned a million times, almost as much as group of death was brought up at the WGC match play. So we know it's going to be tough, and Casey still fits that. So I'm not saying go off of him here, but like Adam Scott, Louis O, Bubba, Sergio, these guys to me are all the same guy. So if they're all going to be much lower owned, I just probably can't get to 30% Casey or want to get overweight when I want to play these other guys around them. So Scott, Louis, and Sergio are my favorite three in there.
All right, Noto, your takes on Casey Chalk and what Tambo just mentioned there.
So I haven't built my lineups yet, but I went through and did a preliminary cut to my player pool, and I'm playing everyone from 7.3 Zalatoris up to 7.9, and then I'm fading everyone from English to 7K. So I love the mid to upper 7K range. Tambo mentioned Sergio, one of the best tee to green golfers in the field. He's gained 15 strokes on approach to the last two events. Obviously had that walk-off hole-in-one, which was awesome in the playoff against Lee Westwood, I think. Bubba Watson, you guys mentioned it, loves Augusta, and he should have won against Brian Harman, but Harman made 7 straight birdies in their match in the match play. That was pretty crazy to watch. Casey, I'll eat the Casey chalk, plays well in majors, good course history, hasn't finished outside of the top 28 in his last 9 events, and he has a win during that stretch as well. Adam Scott had his best ball striking in like 2 years, his last time out, so he's interesting. He hasn't missed a cut here since 2009. And then you always play Louis in majors. That's just pretty simple. And Jason Day, I have a little bit of interest in Jason Day as well.
All right, Noto's playing everybody in this range, literally.
Yeah, it's hard not to.
I am
really hard not to. Yeah, and then you just only let them go that far. Cards. There's Answer and Neiman, who are both great plays there. It's pretty tough to get away from those guys as well. I mean, it's hard for me to pick just one. I don't see any of us with tags there yet. Mine will go in tonight for conviction plays on the site, but Cards, let me ask you, and the same question for Noto. If you can only, you don't have to only pick one. I'm just curious if you have a lean on Answer versus Neiman at the same price tag and very similar ownership, if you had to pick one.
By Thursday morning, I'd imagine you're probably going to be rooting for Neiman a little bit more than you're going to be rooting. You're going to be rooting for the others in that range. Would be my response to that.
Okay, Noto, go to you.
I like Answer, but I'm going to be playing a bunch of both. For me, Answer, his recent form is not as good as he's been playing in terms of his results. Obviously played here in November. I'm not too hyped up on that, but he's talked about loving tricky greens and loving, having to play different shots around the greens. He says he hates courses where you have to just flop it up there. So I think that's at least a little bit interesting tidbit about Answer.
I like them both. I really do. And it's funny, if you look at with the stuff that I look at least long-term, it's Answer, which is surprising to me still. Obviously Neiman's been great long-term as well, but short-term it's definitely Neiman. So it's kind of one of those, you want the short-term or the recent form, or do you want to go with the more long-term? I tend to lean long-term Answer, but then you think about pure bent and where Neiman's had a success, and that's really where it is. So I think they're both great plays, and I wouldn't even mind playing the two of them together as those value plays. And then there's lots of options to mix up above that. So they're not like 20% owned plays or anything here.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I don't think you're going wrong with either one either. I have landed on Neiman, who, one guy with limited course history here, has played here before and then should have played in November, but had the unfortunate timing with a positive COVID test, so could not tee it up back in November. And Noto kind of hinted at the rest of the 7K range kind of is a little ugly, not much to love. You've got guys that are injured, banged up, not playing well. Looks like Max Homa is really the only other guy above 7K that's garnering any type of ownership. So anybody have anything to add on any of the other 7K plus options?
I think, Noto, you just said Zalatoris, right?
Yeah, I'm on board with Zalatoris, one of the better ball strikers in the field over the last 6 months. We saw him top 10 at the U.S. Open at a course he never played.
Yeah.
And apparently, like, one of his coaches is like the same guy that worked with Bryson for a while, that just has like a specific game plan for every single event. So I think that'll at least help him a little bit.
Yeah, I heard there was some insider stuff on Zalatoris and this spot for him. So I'm definitely in on that. A couple guys below, just to mention quick, but Billy Horschel, 7.2. I always like him. I'm a sucker for him, but Kenny brought it up actually on the Fantasy Golf Degenerates podcast, and it made a lot of sense to me for this reason. But he's the guy that gets hot when he had his FedEx Cup run, and we saw that's way back, but he's feeling good. He's looking pretty good. I know match play is a totally different animal, but if again you go on long term, certainly a guy that sets up well here. I think he'd be good. And then going down, the only other interesting play I thought, maybe Cards, I'll get your thoughts on this because it does segue us. But with Cory Connors, Kokrak, and those guys being so popular, any love for a guy like Shane Lowry? He actually doesn't really pop off the chart in any of my numbers and stuff. But if you just think about who he is and the type of golfer, and again, you think about the open, the fast and firmness, the good hands around the greens, putter, all that stuff, he really does set up well. And at 3% versus Connors at 21 and trending up, what are your thoughts on Shane Lowry to round out the range, or anybody else down there?
Yeah, I mean, I don't love anybody else above 7K, but that's the interesting. Connors is just the interesting kind of pivot point there. Like, with his ball striking and the way he's been playing and the 10th here in November, like everything just lines up for Connors to be kind of the guy there at 6,900. And, we talk about potentially fading the cheap chalk at times, but boy, it's tough to pass on Connors at $6,900. So, let's talk about him and then we can pivot to the other values. But Noto, what are you doing with Connors versus the others around him?
Well, I don't think he has like a 5 times greater chance to play better than a guy like Mark Leishman or Brian Arman. But at the same time, I will be playing a bunch of Connors. You mentioned it. He's one of the better ball strikers in the field. I think he's second in this field over the last 50 rounds behind Dustin Johnson. So he's up there with Dustin Johnson. He's finally making a lot of putts. I think he's gained strokes putting over the last 36 rounds. And you mentioned the good course history, 2 for 2 here. So yeah, I mean, he's been a top 25 machine over the last 6 months. It's hard not to like him. He is going to be popular. I think he'll be higher than the 18% that we have shown right now. I like pivoting to Connor or to Kokrak in some of the contests. I think his miscut in November will help keep ownership at a reasonable level. He's been putting really well too over the last couple months, so he's interesting. And then obviously I'm going to play some Harman. Just continues to play well. He got the lefty narrative. Looked great at the match play, looked great at the players. He did have a T44 here in 2018. I know he's not a bomber, but he does hit a lot of fairways. So hopefully that'll help him a little bit. And if it is firm and fast, it does help some of the shorter guys a little bit. I wanted to get you guys thoughts on 2 guys, Siwoo Kim and Matt Kuchar. One I'm definitely going to be in on. The other one I'm still debating.
All right, I'll throw it over to Tambo to talk about that in a second. Before I do, I want to give everybody a shot to play our Guess the Golfer game for this week. So it's a golfer that we haven't mentioned yet, under 6,800 on DraftKings. So we haven't really gotten to that range yet, but a sub 8% owned guy that we kind of like as a value play this week, that people aren't really talking about. So what is our consensus? We've got a little graphic and a free week of Rotogrinders Premium for somebody to check out. If you guess the right golfer. So drop your guess in the YouTube chat. If you're watching us live, who is the sub 6,800 golfer that we all kind of agree on this week? We'll let everybody take a guess or two at that. And we'll see if we get a winner. So that's our Guess the Golfer game for this week. Now, Tambo, your thoughts on those couple of guys that Noto mentioned there?
Well, he didn't give them out. So my thoughts are that he said who they were, but he didn't say which one was which. I'm guessing he's playing Kuchar and deciding on Siwoo, because I'm playing Siwoo and deciding on Kuchar.
Yeah,
so
I'm with you.
Are you the same? Okay. That's what I was going to say. Yeah. I don't know. Like Siwoo to me is just, and I was, in on him a couple times recently where just, the gameplay and the numbers look too good, and what you're getting. It's, he either does or he doesn't, but I've actually liked him for this course. I remember betting him last year and it didn't work out or anything, obviously, but at 6.7 in these tournaments, especially these large field ones, I'm surprised he's showing up at 10%, but I don't really care about that at all. I do like him in this range. So I'm in on him. You brought up your boy Harman earlier. I'm definitely in on Harman. So I'll play some of him at 6.8. I like Kokrak. I had to look it up because I couldn't remember. I know he's technically an American golfer. He is an American golfer, but he was born in Canada, North Bay, Ontario. And so if everyone's on the Canadian Cory Connors, we could go with the born in Canada, Jason Kokrak, and basically the same thing at half the ownership. So the crispy and fast and firm does worry me quite a bit for Cory Connors. I know he has gained strokes putting, as you mentioned, in 3 of the last tournaments he's played in, and that's been the key to his success. But it does worry me a little bit. These greens, man, they're tricky. He's played it a couple times, but It's going to be different than in November when he just got 10th. So, that could throw him off some too. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Are we doing other guys down here too, Cards? I got a couple more, but
fire away.
Okay. I like Ryan Palmer, 6,500. Any course we like Rahm, we got to like Palmer, right? Lanto Griffin, Brendan Todd. These are just a couple other guys that stand out to me. Zach Johnson, maybe. So I don't want to name them all. Matt Wallace coming in with some good form. Kevin Na, but there's some of the guys that I'll be thinking about mixing into my pool.
All right, Noto, any other punts for you? Again, more guys down here than what you usually see under 7K. Obviously, you don't want to go to the bottom, the very bottom. But Noto, your thoughts on some punts?
Yeah, definitely agree on Ryan Palmer. I'm surprised we only have him at 10% ownership right now. If that holds, I think he's a great play. Hasn't missed a cut since September. He had a T33 his last time he played here in 2015. And he's another guy that we typically think of as a ball striker, but he's been gaining some strokes on the green recently. I'll have a few shares of Lanto Griffin, a few shares of Robert McIntyre. Again, bomber lefty. He's never played here before. So him and Zalatoris probably going to be the two first timers that I end up playing. And then the other guys that I have in my player pool right now, Dylan Fratelli. We know he gained a lot of distance off the tee. I don't love that he came here fifth in here in November. I think that's a little misleading. Maybe that'll help or higher his ownership, which I don't love, but I'll have some of him. And then Sebastian Munoz just is a guy that can gain strokes in all facets. And I think he's interesting as well.
All right, let's go ahead and round it out here with our last few options. Congrats, by the way, to our winner of the contest. Second guess on the whole board. Congrats to Matt Tomeno for guessing Lanto Griffin as the value golfer of the week. Nicely done, Matt. Impressive to get that on just the second guess we had on there. So free week of RG Premium for you. Devin, our producer, will help hook you up and coordinate that with you after the show. But yeah, so Griffin is the guy, and Noto and Tambo kind of both mentioned him there, and reasonable punt play at low ownership. And Ryan Palmer, I'm with you guys on him. He could have been the choice as well, though he'll probably be just a little bit more popular than Griffin will. So Tambo, any follow up to some of Noto's plays there?
I like them actually. Most of them are guys that were on my radar. I forgot Munoz. Always like him. You just think I joked that they said that Kuchar was the smiling assassin. It's more like Munoz. He's always having a good time out there and doing his thing. And then I teased you a little before the show. I just, Noto was late to get in there. A few technical difficulties. I was asking Cards so you or Noto can chime in here live. But what about Lefty? He played well at the Honda and the Players, and then he made sure he left Texas early to get out here, so he missed the cut and get on out and let's play. So what are your thoughts on Lefty here this week, Noto?
I mean, look, there's a case to be made for him. I think he's had his best ball striking run in the last couple of years, so I get it, but he's not for me.
Okay. And Cards, you're out too, right?
He's going to be smelling the azaleas when he goes to pick his ball up out of them after a few of his drives.
Okay.
Who knows? He's a big game hunter. Maybe Phil will show up this week. So, the one guy that nobody ever talks about at majors that I don't think we even mentioned, Webb Simpson. This just hit me. Like, did we even say his name once?
Well, we said above 9K and then we just dropped.
Then we dropped down. So this isn't an indictment of, but this is kind of how people operate with majors. Like it's just Webb. He's fine. I like him.
Yeah, we did the same with Tommy Fleetwood. Maybe we should cover both those.
I apologize. Yeah, I guess that's my hole in my theories there by going above 8K and below. And we missed the guys that are right on the thresholds. So my apologies go out to Shane Lowry, who Tambo did bring up. Victor Perez, shout out to him. Match play played well. Francesco Molinari, there's your 7K guys. Fleetwood right at 8K and Webb right at 9K. That missed my little threshold cutoffs there. So anyway, I just felt like somebody might play it back and wonder, well, they didn't really talk about Webb. So thoughts on Webb or anybody we maybe missed that you want to highlight before we get out of here? No.
Yeah, I do like Webb as well. Glad you brought him up. Back-to-back top 10s here. It seems like he's figured this place out. And if it's going to be firm and fast, and it's going to be, a week where short game matters, you got to like Webb Simpson. And I love him on the par fives with that little hybrid wood he hits. He's so good at it. hits it right where he wants to every time. And then Tommy Fleetwood, I will have some of him. Played well at the match play. He just always seems to shoot himself in the foot. No matter what tournament is, he's like right in the mix, and then he just makes a mistake. So I don't think he's going to win, but I do have some interest in Fleetwood.
All right, Tambo, anything else that we've overlooked that you want to make sure we get across here this week?
No, I don't think so. That was none of those guys were really high on my radar anyway. There's a case to be made for Webb, Fleetwood, I guess, based on that. I brought up Lowry earlier just because I thought maybe as a Connors pivot there with, like I said, the fast and firm, good hands around the greens, can get hot with the putter. And a lot of guys speak pretty highly of Lowry too, not just the ability to drink as many beers as he does, but Brooks Koepka has said things in the past, like this is a guy that you don't want to mess. And Brooks himself he tried to mess with him and couldn't get there in the Open, fended off Brooks on his major run. So I like Lowry as the 0-0 play more than Fleetwood and Webb, but there is a case to be made more for Webb probably than the others. I just like Finau up there and then Hatton down below.
All right. With that, it's been an hour that has flown by, and we'll go ahead and get on out of here. Best of luck in all your contests with the Masters, everybody. Thanks as always to all of you who watched us live and watch us after the fact. We appreciate it. And be sure to check out our premium content if you get a chance. Lots of good stuff there. Tambo and Noto will be on with a lineup HQ breakdown show on Wednesday. We've got our, we've got our projected ownership, all the lineup HQ tools and lineup building tricks that are super important in tournaments like this. So check out Rotogrinders Premium. We let you pick individual sports, or you can get the combo package. Great time for that with a whole bunch of sports going on right now. MLB, NBA, golf, you name it. Lots of stuff to look at on a daily basis. So as always, thanks for watching. For Tambo and Noto and our producer, Devin, I am Justin. Good luck this week, everybody. And we hope you have a profitable Masters. Take care.